Um, Hi. Sorry I haven't been posting in a long time. It's just that school and Thanksgiving and holiday complications. So, yeah, that's why I'm doing this. Even though Thanksgiving was yesterday, I'm doing, let's just call it, let's just say a Thanksgiving special. It's going to be called, What If Deku Had Regenitive Immortality? Now, I know you're probably all saying, what is regenitive immortality? It basically means that he can die as many times as he wants and he can just pop up. Like, he can just keep creating, kind of like twice his quirk. He can, so how do I put this? He can basically die and then come back as another copy of himself. Or say he chopped off his arms and then he killed himself. He would come back as a full copy of himself. And if he waited long enough after he chopped off his arm, about 5 minutes. Sorry about that. My dog is in here. But, okay, I'm in a different room now. She shouldn't be able to get in here. Sorry about the screen. It keeps switching. Sorry about that. But after he, sorry if you can hear the dog noises. But if he chops his arm off and then kills himself, like I said, he can come back as a full copy of himself. But if he chops his arm off, and then waits about 5 minutes, it'll start to grow back instantaneously. And the healing process, after the 5 minutes, it starts healing, and then it takes about 10 minutes for it to fully heal. But it's still really weak after he does it. So let's get into it. Deku was born, and when he was born, he was a very upbeat child. He was never really down, and everybody always thought that he had a quirk that had to do with an angel, because he had a halo over his head. The reason he had a halo over his head was because, well, his quirk is regenitive immortality, so he's basically an angel, since he can die as many times as he wants. So no one actually knew his real quirk, they just thought it was halo. This halo didn't give him any special abilities, it was just there. But when they went to the quirk doctor said, "Kid, you have a very powerful quirk. If you want to become a hero, I think you can become a hero." This made Izuku very happy, but they said they still didn't know what his quirk was. So he was a little sad, but he was also happy that he was going to get his quirk. Now, when he got his quirk, he didn't really know that he awakened his quirk when it happened. He just kind of got a little sick, and then after like a day or two, it just went away. So he thought it was just like a cold or something. But the weirdest thing was, he didn't have a fever. He didn't have a fever, was the weirdest thing about it. He felt terribly sick, and his body showed signs of being sick, but he wasn't running a fever. It wasn't a real fever, it was only like 100 degrees, but it was really bad. It was a really bad fever. But after a day or two, it just went away with no question. And that's when he thought that his quirk was repel. It could repel any natural means of harming him. Now, this was true on some levels, but not exactly. He awakened his quirk on the day he got sick. And he figured out that his quirk wasn't repel when he was running and he fell and broke his leg. Yep, he fell and broke his leg. Now, the weirdest thing was, he was sitting on the ground crying for about 5 minutes. And after that 5 minutes, he was still tearing, but he wasn't crying like he was before. He was just there. And the nurse came out and asked what was wrong, and he said that he fell and his leg hurt really bad. So she brought him inside. And since this was a school with uniforms, sorry, you can hear my dog, but since it's a school with uniforms, they have an x-ray machine that kind of works. So she took an x-ray and said, well, you broke your leg, but it seems to be healing itself. And she said, it must be your quirk. As Deku smiled and says, I guess. Now, time skipped to when Deku was in middle school. Bakugo still bullies him, as Bakugo still has that I'm better than everyone attitude. Now, Bakugo isn't, per se, mean to Deku, like as mean to Deku as he was in the original. But, how do I put this? Bakugo still is really mean to everyone else. He sort of respects Deku, now that I put it like that. Deku will, since Deku knows he has a powerful quirk, but it's not really fit for offense, the only thing that he can use it for offense is using his arms or legs as shields, as they can repair if he trains his quirk. If he trains his quirk correctly, he can forcefully repair his body using a lot of energy. And that's exactly what Deku did. He trained on the beach, but he didn't have all that healthy diet and everything. He ate sushi and fish and stuff like that. He was a normal kid, but he ate a little bit more healthy than everyone else. Like, he would eat salads, like, almost every day, and he would get his fair share of proteins every day. And about 2 months before the entrance exam, Deku is where he is right now, as in muscle. In muscle, he is about, like, the same level as Deku in the anime. He's the same level. But he keeps training, and eventually, he cleans the whole beach. Now, I'm not saying, like, cleans the beach as in, like, he cleaned the beach in the anime, as in there's no speck of dust left. I mean, like, he cleaned it, put all the trash down, and then cleaned it again. And then he went to the entrance exam. Now that Deku was able to regenerate his parts of body forcefully, he could chop his arm off, and then make his arms, he could regenerate his arms super long, and then, like, crush the robots or something. And that's kind of what he did, but he really just, like, he can regenerate his parts of body, and then put random things on. Say he cut his arm off, and then regenerated it as hard as a rock. Kind of like Kirishima. He could basically copy Kirishima's quirk if he cut his arm off and then regenerated it as hard as a rock. But Deku didn't have a knife on him, so he was kind of left in the rubble. Speaking of rubble, that's exactly what he did. He ran over to the rubble, and he smashed his wrist open with a rock. This made his wrist burst open, spewing out blood everywhere. I'm sorry, I think I lost my monetization on that one. I don't even have monetization, actually, never mind. Anyways, it burst his wrist open. And he regenerated it so that, basically, almost like Kaminari's quirk, he made it so that he could turn his energy into lightning, basically. But it wasn't as strong as Kaminari's. So he kind of just used it as a mini taser. He'd run up to the robots and then zap them. And then run up to another robot and zap that one. So by the end of the entrance exam, he was very tired. But before the end of the entrance exam, when he was running for the gates, he heard a cry for help. And so he smashed his kneecaps open and then regenerated him so that he could run a lot faster. And he ran. Like the wind, he ran as fast as he could. And he got there, and he saw a brown-haired girl. And you probably already know what happens, but just in case you're watching this and you haven't even watched the anime yet. He picks up the anime. He picks up the girl, not anime. He does not pick up the anime. He picks up the girl and then runs as fast as he could towards the gate. And when Recovery Girl shows up, he gives her to Recovery Girl. Now, this did not happen in the actual thing. He just destroyed the robot and then got her out from under the rubble and out of the way. So, yeah, he did that. And so he was accepted into UA with 4th place of how many points do I give him? About 100 points. And I don't know if that's actually accurate. I don't know how many points everyone else got. We didn't get to see that much in anime. But, yeah. So, he got into UA with about 100 points. And he was in about 4th place. So, he was the 4th one to throw the ball in Class 1A. So, when he threw the ball in Class 1A, he didn't actually throw the ball at first. He used the ball and then smashed his fingers. And then regenerated them super strong. He gave them a lot of muscle so that he could throw the ball super duper far. So he grabbed the ball and smashed it up against his hand, breaking all the bones in his hand. You're probably wondering, how can he break all the bones in his hands? Because he was training for about 10 months and cleaned a beach back and forth twice. So, yeah, he smashes his hand and regenerates it with a lot of muscle, and smashes his elbow and regenerates that with a lot of muscle around it, and then yeets that ball. And I'm like, literally really far. He yeets it really far. Almost, it was basically like 2 points behind Bakugo's. I'm gonna say 68 because Bakugo got around 70 points in the anime. So Deku got around 60 points, and Kachan got around about, I'm not gonna say Kachan. Bakugo got around 70 points. So, Deku got into UA with a happy-go attitude, and he was very strong. Now, he didn't actually have the suit he has in the anime. He has a suit that has knives on it, basically. It's like an Iron Maiden. He puts it on, and if he presses the button, spikes stab into him everywhere. Now, his body, he can regenerate it super fast, like I said. And since he needs extra energy, he has all sort of sweets in his pocket so that he can stay awake without using too much after using all of his energy. And he also has dark chocolate so that he can stay awake from the bitter taste. And, believe it or not, he has a taser in his pocket. That when he presses a button, it tases him so he stays awake. And it also gives him a slight burn. So, yeah, I don't actually know what his costume would look like. It would not be based off of All Might, I'd say. Because Deku in this universe is still a fanboy of All Might, but he's not like hardcore fanboy, I will die for All Might kind of guy like he is in the anime. He's just like, oh, I have 1 or 2 action figures and maybe like a blanket or a pillow or something. He's not like he is in the anime. Maybe has a few blankets of All Might, maybe a pillow or 2 of All Might, and an action figure or 3 of All Might and other heroes. So Deku is basically a hero weeb. I never thought I'd say that sentence in my life. I never thought I'd say Deku is basically a hero weeb. Sorry if you can hear my dog. Or dogs. They're really loud. I don't know why. So, when they went to the USJ in the attack, Deku, how do I put this? He breathed in the water so his lungs would pop. Oh, that must be painful. Why did I put that in my script? Oh God. He breathed in a bunch of water so his lungs would pop, and regenerated his lungs so that he could breathe underwater. And he hit his eyes with a rock unintentionally and said, well, I guess I might as well regenerate my eyes so I can see underwater just fine. So he did. And he stayed underwater. But when it came time for him to come back up to water so he could come back up above the water so he could have more air so he could hold his breath for longer under the water, he saw that All Might was attacking the Nomu. So he sprang up, smashing his wrists and hands and elbows on the concrete, ran towards the Nomu, regenerated his arms so that they were super strong, and tried to smash basically what he did in the anime. Except it was a lot weaker, and it did nothing. The Nomu looked at him, and then threw him across the USJ. Luckily, he landed in the water, because the Nomu wasn't ordered to do that. But if the Nomu had gone any stronger, Deku would have been slammed into the wall of the USJ, basically killing him. But since this didn't happen, since the Nomu wasn't ordered to destroy Deku, and Deku was a lot stronger than he is in the anime. So right now, Deku in strength is around, I'd say, how do I put this? Like, say you have a normal Deku, and then you added on 2% of One for All, and that was like a normal strength for him. That's basically what he's like. That's what it's like for him. So yeah. Deku got knocked back, knocking himself out, basically killing him in the process, as he reformed quickly and then jumped into action, trying to kill the Nomu, but the same cycle repeating over and over again. The Nomu hitting him, Deku falling back, and getting knocked out, and dying. And, that was until All Might came in and used a lot of his power and completely destroyed the Nomu. Now, you're probably wondering, was it like in the anime? Yes, it was like in the anime. Except Deku wasn't able to get close to the Nomu, as the villains were attacking him. So yeah, he attacked the Nomu once, and he couldn't get back to the Nomu. And he was trying to yell, "Get out of my way! I'm trying to save All Might!" As that's what he was trying to do, but he just couldn't get the words out. As hard as he tried, he couldn't say anything. Almost like he didn't want to say anything. So he threw a rock at his vocal cords, and regenerated them to see if anything would happen. Sure enough, he still didn't want to talk. So he knew by now that it wasn't his vocal cords messed up. It was him. Deku's body was not going to let him talk. So, Deku knew this and didn't say anything, as it would just waste his energy. What do I do? Deku was pondering what he should do when suddenly All Might destroyed the Nomu. Wholesome, right? Yeah, it's not wholesome. The Nomu was destroyed, and the League of Villains almost ended up kidnapping Bakugo, as they knew Bakugo was very strong. But they ended up failing, so still wholesome. When they got back to UA, they were told to go home and they could take a break for a week. But that didn't mean that they couldn't not train. They still had to train. So, anyways, guys, that's where I'm going to leave it off for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.